Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Washington Justice preview. So we are finally here, the last team of our 20 team previews. It is time for the Washington Justice. So, the Washington Justice are the other team that finished in 17th this year, because they finished 17th joint with Toronto Defiant with equal differentials, -33, and equal win-loss ratios of 8 and 20. So, Washington Justice, yes, they were poor for most of the season. Actually, very poor. But they did improve in Stage 4 with actually crazy plays from the likes of Stratus and Corey, who really actually turned up in Stage 4, and then it was carried into the World Cup for Corey as well. Now, Washington Justice, if they can maintain that improvement, then I think Washington Justice could be a decent team going into 2020. But what we have to remember here is that a lot of teams around them have made significant improvements, like the Florida Mayhem, like Toronto Defiant, Houston Outlaws, Dallas Fuel, Paris Eternal. They have all made significant improvements during this off-season. The question is, can the Washington Justice's improvements counteract what they've done and improve them more than them? So, the Washington Justice have made 3 signings in this off-season. Now, one thing we have to remember is they did bring in Elivote and Lolsish during last season, but they weren't eligible to play at the end of last season. They only came in July, and they didn't get to play. Now, that is a storied off-tank and main-tank duo from Sweden that have had a lot of time in European contenders and been very, very good for the likes of Angry Titans, who won European contenders back when they were playing for them. I think this actually could be a really good tank duo given the chance. So we will get onto that in a minute though. But let's talk about the players they've let go. And it's actually quite a few. So Phasix has retired. Sam is now unassigned. Actually, they are all unassigned. No one has actually found another team. So the tank Janus has also gone. Hyonu has gone as well. Addo's gone. Guido has gone. And Sleepy has gone. Sleepy was a surprise to me. I thought they would hang on to Sleepy. But hey, who am I to question the moves of an Overwatch League team? Then we look at their organisation, and again there's been significant changes. So, the coach Shrugger has gone, MKL, the coach/analyst, has gone, Avala, the assistant coach, has gone to be assistant general manager at the Paris Eternal, and then Wizard Hyong has gone from his head coach role and is now a strategic coach at the Seoul Dynasty, as we referred to a couple of videos ago. So then they have freed up these spots and brought in some new coaching staff. So first of all is John Galt, who will be coming in as head coach for the Washington Justice. He was a coach at the LA Gladiators previously and had had time coaching the Singapore squad for the World Cup preliminaries. Obviously, not too much to work with there, but they did do decently at the Sea Invitational before the World Cup, losing out to Hong Kong. He has had a really good history with the Los Angeles Gladiators. Obviously, Los Angeles Gladiators, very consistent team. Decent team in 2019 while John Galt has been there, so this is a decent pickup for the Washington Justice. Then they have brought in Supreme as a development coach. He comes in from the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou Spark again had a very good season last season in their debut season, getting that 4th place. He must have done something right, Supreme, to get Hangzhou where they were. Hangzhou had good quality in their roster, don't get me wrong, but the coaches obviously play their part. Supreme will be a good pickup for the Washington Justice. And then we have Wiz, who is coming in as a strategic coach. He is coming in from the XL2 Academy, which is no longer taking part in NA West, or NA Contenders as it is now. Now, he was a coach, obviously, at XL2, and XL2 actually had a pretty decent go of it last year, especially towards the latter half of last year, where they came second in NA West, only to Team Envy, and they came fairly high placed in the Gauntlet, losing out to the dominant Atlanta Academy in the Gauntlet, who came second, who even actually beat the likes of Runaway. So it's no shame to lose to the Atlanta Academy. And I think this is another decent coaching pickup for the Washington Justice. But who have they replaced those players who they let go with then? So the 3 players they have brought in, will start off with the main tank Raw, coming in from the Los Angeles Gladiators. He was at Team Conde Panthera before that. And Raw was a very stable main tank for the Los Angeles Gladiators. Again, he was nothing should we say he was nothing explosive, nothing, I don't say special, that's wrong. He was very consistent, but he was nothing explosive, nothing headlining like the likes of Bumper and Super were. But Raw was very stable for the Los Angeles Gladiators, so I think this is actually a really decent pickup for the Washington Justice. Next up, they have brought in the DPS Tuba. So Tuba comes in from Bubble Burster Gaming in Contenders China. Bubble Burster Gaming are a decent team in Contenders China. Again, nothing outstanding. He did have time at O2 Blast though, where they did do very well, losing out to Element Mystic in 2019 Season 1 Contenders of Korea. So Tuba is a decent player. He is a projectile DPS player, only 20 years old, obviously South Korean. I think he is a decent pickup for the Washington Justice, but I think this is a depth pickup because I honestly think the Washington Justice will be starting with Stratus and Corey like they did at the end of last season. Why wouldn't you, the way they were playing at the end of last season, let's be honest. And then the final pickup is AimGod, coming from Boston Uprising. AimGod, actually, I think was really hard done by at the Boston Uprising last season. Boston Uprising did nothing but just swap in support players last season, and it was really destabilising that team. I don't know what they were playing at, to be quite honest with you. I think AimGod, honestly, was one of the best, if not the best supports on that Boston Uprising roster. I do not understand why they were being so silly, messing around with it. He was really good for them in the inaugural season as well, so it was really puzzling what Boston Uprising were doing last season with AimGod, but I think this is a really good pickup for the Washington Justice again. AimGod should be one of the best supports, if not the best support on this roster. Him and Ark, I honestly think the Washington Justice have got a really good support line. Really good support line. Now, the question I have here is, they've brought in Raw. They haven't brought in another off-tank. They've only got 8 players, so they've got the 3 DPS, Tuba, Stratus and Corey. They've got the 2 supports, Ark and AimGod, and then they've got the 3 tanks, Elivote, Lulshish and Raw. So, if they're not planning to bring in any more players, which this late in the day I wouldn't imagine they are, why not bring in another off-tank to partner Raw? Because Lulshish and Elivote have been a partnership in the tank roles for a very, very long time. And so they've already built up this synergy, this cooperation between each other that I think could be really darn good. Gosh darn, I've played against Lulshish. I know how good he is. So, like, it'll be interesting to see what they do with their tank line. If they split up the tank line and go with Raw and Elivote, I honestly think that could be a mistake. No matter how good Raw is, don't get me wrong, I think Raw is good. But I think, honestly, they should start off with Lulshish and Elivote. And then perhaps work in Raw if things aren't working out. That would be what I would do. But, again, they might have other opinions. I think it would have made more sense if the Washington Justice had got in an extra off-tank. Because if they got an off-tank to play a Raw, then they could literally swap their entire tank line when they wanted to. And this is the route some teams have gone down. Notably, the Shanghai Dragons could literally swap in their entire tank line because they've got 2 main tanks and 2 off-tanks. So it's an interesting one for Washington, and I do worry about the 2 teams that we've looked at in the past 2 videos, so Washington Justice and Vancouver Titans, because I worry about their squad depth. They have got 8 players. This is going to be the most demanding season in Overwatch League history. That's without a doubt. The travelling, the worldwide homestand format is going to be demanding on these players. It will cause fatigue, and it could cause injuries. So what happens, say, if Elivote gets injured? Where does your off-tank come in? That's the question. If one of your supports gets injured, who is going to play support? That is the questions I have for teams that don't have very deep rosters. I think, honestly, the target for me would have been at least 10 on your roster for this season. You can always size it down during the season if you weren't using those players, just like London Spitfire did in the inaugural season. They weren't using them. And to be quite honest, a 12-man roster in the inaugural season and even last year was frowned upon because you could never keep them happy. But this year is a different story. And I think a 10-man roster is a pretty good sweet spot. Some have gone more, like London Spitfire and the Shanghai Dragons. Some have gone less, like the Vancouver Titans and the Washington Justice. And I think they've got too much reliance on their core roster, and it could come back to bite them. And remember, these two teams don't have any two-way players either. So they've got no backups whatsoever. It could come back to bite them. But that is just my thoughts anyway. So Washington Justice, I think they're looking better than last year. I don't think they're good enough to be one of the higher ranked teams in the league. And a lot of people are putting Washington Justice up and around those playoffs. I won't be putting Washington Justice up and around those playoffs. Not in my power rankings. I don't see that happening. I think there's too much improvement from other teams in the league to put Washington Justice up there. If you plop this Washington Justice team into the 2019 season, maybe, but not at the moment. I think there's too much unknown, too much. I don't know whether they're going to carry on their form that they showed at the end of last season. Because and Florida Mayhem did this as well. The pressure was off for these two teams in Stage 4 of last season. They knew they had no chance of playoffs, or overall playoffs anyway. So they just, for want of a better phrase, let it go. I don't know whether they're going to keep up with that again. I may be wrong, don't get me wrong, but I won't be ranking them probably as highly as some people have in their power rankings so far. But the Washington Justice will start off their season in Philadelphia at the Battle of Brotherly Love in Week 2, where they will take on, obviously, the Philadelphia Fusion and the Houston Outlaws. That should be two very telling games for this Washington Justice squad, because if other people's power rankings are right, then the Washington Justice should be beating those two teams. It'll be very interesting to see what they do. And then, moving on after that, they will take on Paris Eternal and the London Spitfire in Week 3. In Week 5, they will take on the Boston Uprising and New York Excelsior. And in Week 6, they will take on the Toronto Defiant. They should be beating teams like the Paris Eternal and the Boston Uprising and the Toronto Defiant if they want to be up there. London Spitfire is a completely unknown entity, so I really don't know where they're going to fall. But a team they could easily beat. That's the way I'd look at it in a moment. You look at most people's power rankings, London Spitfire are looking at around 17th. I don't think they're quite that bad. But again, you don't know much about this, or enough about this London squad to say where they're going to fall, to be quite honest with you. So that is it for the Washington Justice, and that is it for the team previews. 20 videos, 20 days, 20 teams. But we got there in the end. There are 4 more videos planned before the start of the season. Obviously, I want to do power rankings. I want to do a preview for Week 1. I want to do a preview for the entire season, including format and stuff like that. And then I also want to do a look ahead at the meta we might see in the Overwatch League in its early stages anyway, because the Overwatch League will be entering on patch 1.44. The question is, which patch 1.44? Because there are 2 patch 1.44s. There's one on the PTR right now and one on live. If it's the one on PTR, we could be looking at a massive meta shift going into the league. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.